Hello lovely people, in this video today I wanted to talk about a video I saw and sort of respond to it. It was a video of a person with Tourette's responding and reacting to Tics and Roses, and if you don't know already, Tics and Roses was a TikToker who said that they had Tourette's and Huntington's disease. However, a lot of people, including those in the Tourette's community, believed that they were faking, and a lot of people came up with a lot of reasons why they believe they're faking, and I'm not making this video to defend Tics and Roses because honestly I don't know anything about them, I wasn't following them, never actually heard about them until recently, and as well as this, I just only found out about them like when their account had been shut down. I think their account has been shut down now because I couldn't find it when I looked it up. So this video isn't to defend Tics and Roses or talk about them really, but I wanted to respond to some of the things that this individual said in their video. But it was a video that got over, I think it was 19 million views so far, which is a lot, and congratulations to them. That is a lot of views. It's amazing. But I felt like some of the things in the video were misinformation, and I'm not attacking the YouTuber at all because they made a follow-up video correcting themselves on some things, but I did also want to use this as a teaching point because, wow, I felt like it's important to talk about, especially seeing as it got so many views, and I wanted to talk about how this also relates to my experience as well, because I felt like the video kind of played down how complex tics can be, and I felt like this could be an important teaching point and a conversation starter to talk about complex and severe tics. So basically, in the video I saw, they showed a TikTok video of Tics and Roses sort of putting a bag onto their head and saying, "I'm going to Canada," and the person with real Tourette said tics can't present like that, but the thing is that they can. I've had a lot of tics similar to that. For example, I had one tic where I put the top of a bin onto my head and yelled something about being a spaceman or an astronaut because, it was sort of bin that had an opening here and it kind of did look like a space helmet. So tics can actually present like that. Some people's tics can be very, very complex. The brain isn't simple, the brain is very complex. So tics can also be very, very complex. And the person with real Tourette's in the video said that if they had such severe tics, they wouldn't be happy. But that implies that a person with tics who is happy must be faking, but that's not true. The thing is, I've had tics since technically since I was 4 years old. My first tic was at age 4, but it exploded when I was 8 years old. I was diagnosed with severe Tourette syndrome at the age of 15, but my tics were actually severe for years before then. It just takes a while to get a diagnosis. But, I'm not annoyed all the time at my tics because I've had it for most of my life. I have gotten used to it. And yes, my tics are very, very complex and severe at times. You can't see how complex my tics are now because tics wax and wane. Right now I'm in quite a mild episode, but sometimes they do get a lot worse. And when they're a lot worse, they are very, very complex. So, I don't get upset when my tics are this complex because I might as well just laugh about it because I don't want to be upset all the time. Otherwise I'd spend my whole life like that. We are allowed to be happy, and there is a way to be happy even when you have severe tics. The person with Tourette's in the video also says that tics are not forced. Woohoo, beans! And they said this as well after, basically, Tics and Roses was talking about tics that they have. And they said what one of their tics was, and then they did the tic straight afterwards, and the person said tics can't be forced like that, but tics are suggestible. So often, actually, when we talk about a specific tic, we will do that specific tic because it is suggestible. We've reminded ourselves that we have that tic. So it is actually very natural for someone to mention a tic that they have and immediately do that tic afterwards. And as well as this, he says that, people don't know what they're going to tic. But the thing is, that's not necessarily true either. I often do know what I'm going to tic, sometimes like 10 seconds beforehand. And that's why I will warn people and say, by the way, my tic's going to do this. I'm warning you because I know what my tic's going to do. But I get an urge and a warning, tells me what the tic's going to be. So that's not necessarily true either. And he says tics aren't forced, but they're not forced, they are uncontrollable, but in a way we do get an urge beforehand and then they happen. Woo-hoo. So that's why we can sometimes know before we tic what we are going to tic. He also says that a tic isn't going to be very contextual and isn't going to rhyme, but this is false because my tics often make up their own rhymes, very unique ones. My tics are often very contextual. For example, there is a program called Lingo, which me and my mum were watching, and it was quite funny because my tics, it starts with a letter, and you're supposed to think of the words that begin with that letter. My tics will start yelling words that begin with that letter. My tics are very, very contextual. And he also says that if they are contextual, then they're going to be repetitive and not a one-off. But ever since the age of 14, I have had a lot of contextual tics that are very one-off. Most of my tics, in fact, are one-off, and they almost always comment on my surroundings. For example, when I went for my PIP assessment, PIP is a disability benefit in the United Kingdom, My tics told the assessor that it looked like an alien did a shit on their head. So, my tics are very contextual. They do comment on the surroundings, and they often aren't as repetitive. I do have repetitive tics as well, but I would say actually I more often have the one-off tics, which aren't repetitive. If you haven't seen the video that I'm talking about already, the one that got 19 million views, I will comment it down below, because otherwise maybe you're confused as to what I'm talking about. But I'm trying to explain what they said and what I would respond to it as well. He says that you can't choose what you tick, which is true. However, as I said, sometimes we do know what we're going to tick beforehand. If we say that we're going to have a certain tick and then we tick it, it isn't because we're choosing to tick it, it's because sometimes we have the urge that tells us what tick we're going to have. So that's why sometimes, as I said, I will warn people that I'm going to tick a certain thing before I tick it. And it feels very strange to me because a lot of people think Tics and Roses is faking, which she might be, I don't know, a lot of people think she is. But the thing is, if someone's tics look like the tics that Tics and Roses had, that doesn't mean they're faking, because my tics look almost identical to their tics. For example, there was a video where they were packaging, I didn't see it on their channel, I saw it on the video where the person with Tourette's was responding to Tics and Roses, but they showed a video of Tics and Roses doing packaging with severe tics. And a lot of people think that's fake, and again, it may be, but just because someone's tics presents like that doesn't automatically mean they're faking. Because I remember, I think it was when I was 18, I was packaging some Christmas gifts, I was trying to wrap them up, and my tics just ended up using the middle of the wrapping paper, the cardboard bit middle, as a lightsaber. And it became almost impossible to wrap it properly. But again, I wasn't upset about it. I was laughing about it because I do try to make light of something I struggle with, because I struggle with so much and I've always coped through humour. We are allowed to be happy, and our tics can be very, very complex and contextual like that. I did feel a little bit uncomfortable with part of this video because they basically started mimicking severe tics. They started mimicking Tics and Roses and then said something along the lines of, haha, it's so quirky. And of course, they were making fun of someone who they were certain was faking. But at the same time, it felt as if they were making fun of people with severe tics and mimicking us. And I didn't really like that. It made me quite uncomfortable. And it does just scare me because 19 million people saw this video, plus more actually, because I've also seen videos where clips of his video was included in them as well. So more than 19 million people have seen that. And it just worries me because every way in which he says tics can't present, my tics present just like that. So it can be quite invalidating and makes us afraid of being fake claimed, because then 19 million people may look at people with tics just like mine and think we're automatically faking when we're not. We need support, we need validation. He also says that Tics and Roses wasn't sharing it for awareness, and again, if she was faking, then she wasn't. But people who have tics that look like the tics that Tics and Roses was pretending to have, potentially, those individuals, they are doing it for awareness. And some people think, well, if you're just sharing your severe tics, it's not for awareness, it's for clout. And maybe for some people, but I'm not saying it is. But the thing is, I like it when people share their journey with severe and complex tics, because, and you're probably thinking why isn't it creating a negative stereotype of Tourette's? But my tics present just like those TikTokers' tics, and I didn't get my tics from TikTok. As I said, I had tics for a lot longer, and they've been complex for a lot longer. They were complex before I even met anyone with Tourette's. But cabbages, wow! And then he said, if it is awareness, then it's a messed up version of awareness. But I don't believe it's a messed up version, because we need people to show what severe and complex tics look like. Because if there was no representation of severe and complex tics, then everyone's just going to think we're faking when we have those tics. And showing severe and complex tics and showing that we can be happy with it, we don't have to be sad all the time, that's very empowering and very helpful. It gives people hope. It gives people like me hope who have very complex tics. And as well as this, I've noticed after the rise of Tourettic creators on TikTok, people in general in society, when I went out in public, were more understanding. Less people stared at me and more people knew what was going on, and they could identify what was going on from those videos, from the increase in awareness, which is brilliant, because otherwise they would just assume that I am a defiant individual or something, or that I'm just trying to get attention, when it is not like that at all. So these creators who show their severe and complex tics, I think that's amazing, because we need representation as well. I mean, I remember when I was in a shop called The Range, and I went to the top of a balcony thing and just yelled, "I am a beluga whale," really loudly across the whole shop, but thankfully nobody seemed to be bothered by it, when in the past they often would be bothered by that. So I think there has been an increase in awareness, and I think that is a lot to do with the rise of social media advocates with Tourette's and tics. There are also many other reasons why people believe that Tics and Roses is faking, and again, she may have been, but also, just because we present like Tics and Roses doesn't mean we're automatically faking. Another person said that because she sometimes hesitates before she tics, or her tics don't seem as violent, like she can stop herself, people think she's faking due to that. But that again doesn't automatically mean that someone is faking, because I have tics where I start hitting out at someone and then I freeze before I hit them. Some people would think that's fake, but I have the ability to suppress and redirect, as some people with tics do. Suppression doesn't mean you can stop all the tics, it's just where you temporarily hold them in, but they will come out later. But I can stop myself mid-tic before it does something serious. So again, that doesn't mean that someone is faking. That means that they have the urge to tic, and they've realized that they're doing it, and they immediately stop themselves and like hold it in briefly.